let's talk about a word you've probably heard a lot lately: post-truth. It's this idea that's shaping, well, just about everything, from what you see on social media to how we talk about politics. And really, it all boils down to one simple, maybe a little unsettling question.
So, let's just ask it. What if feelings mattered more than facts? I mean, really think about that for a second. It sounds kind of philosophical, right? But that one question, that's the core of the post-truth world we're going to dive into.
Okay, so what does post-truth actually mean? The official definition from the dictionary, folks, is pretty clear. It's when objective facts, the stuff you can actually prove, become less important in shaping public opinion than how something makes you feel. It's emotion and personal belief taking the driver's seat. And look, this isn't just some fancy term for academics. In 2016, this thing blew up. Post-truth was named the word of the year. So you gotta ask, right? Why 2016? What was it about that year that made this word suddenly everywhere? Let's just cut through the jargon. In a post-truth world, it's really this simple. What feels true is way more important than what is true. That gut feeling, that emotional connection to a story, it starts to outweigh the actual evidence. So, it's easy to think this is a totally new problem, something that just popped up with the internet, but nope. The word itself has been around for a while, and to really get why it exploded in 2016, we actually need to rewind a bit. And this is pretty wild. The term isn't new at all. It was actually coined way, way back in 1992 by a writer named Steve Tessick. He saw this trend where people were getting kind of okay with ignoring uncomfortable facts, but then the word just sat there. For decades, it was pretty obscure. Then the 2010s hit, and bam, it was suddenly part of our everyday language. So what was the spark? What was that tipping point that took post-truth from a forgotten word to the word of the year? Well, it really all came down to two massive, world-changing political events. And that year was, of course, 2016. You had the Brexit vote in the UK and the US presidential election. And if you look at them side by side, you see the same patterns. Both were driven by really powerful emotional arguments, not just dry policy. Misinformation was absolutely everywhere. And when fact-checkers tried to step in, they were pretty much just brushed aside. Let me give you a perfect example. This number, £350 million. This was plastered all over the Brexit campaign. It was the amount they claimed the UK sent to the EU every single week, money that could go to the National Health Service instead. Now here's the thing. That number was proven to be false. But it didn't matter. It was simple, it was punchy, it hit an emotional nerve, and it felt right to millions of people. That is post-truth politics in a nutshell. But how does this stuff spread so fast and so effectively? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is sitting right in our pockets, our social media feeds. Think about how they work. They're basically designed to be echo chambers. You follow people and pages you agree with, the algorithm sees that and says, great, here's more of that. Pretty soon, you're not even seeing opposing viewpoints anymore. All you see is your own beliefs reflected back at you over and over again, which makes them feel like the absolute undeniable truth. Okay, so we get what post-truth is and how it gets amplified, but so what? Why should we care? Because this isn't just some academic discussion, it has very real, very serious consequences that affect all of us. For starters, our democracy takes a huge hit. I mean, if we're all voting based on lies or just on gut feelings instead of, shared facts, then the whole system starts to break down. An informed public is the foundation, and that foundation starts to crumble. And it just drives us further and further apart, right? If we can't even agree on what is real and what isn't, how on earth are we supposed to solve big problems together? We end up living in completely separate realities, which makes finding any common ground almost impossible. It just pours fuel on the fire of social division. And maybe the biggest thing, trust just evaporates. Trust in our basic institutions, things like journalism, science, experts. When that's gone, what's left? We become way more vulnerable to being manipulated, and it just breeds confusion and fear. Okay, I know, this all sounds pretty bleak, maybe even a little overwhelming. But here's the good news. We are not helpless here, not at all. There are actual concrete things we can all do to fight back and learn how to navigate all this noise. So let's talk about building your personal truth toolkit. The main goal here is just to be a more mindful, more critical thinker. It really comes down to some simple habits, Like before you hit share, just pause for a second and check the source. Ask yourself, does this story seem like it was designed to make me angry or afraid? It's also about intentionally breaking out of that echo chamber, listening to different perspectives, supporting real journalism that does the hard work of fact-checking, and maybe the hardest one, being willing to value the truth even when it's not what you want to hear. I think this really sums it up perfectly. At the end of the day, it's really up to us. It's on every single one of us to make sure that facts and evidence still have a place in our society. The noise is always going to be there, but we get to choose whether we amplify that noise or amplify the truth. So I'm going to leave you with one last thing to think about. After hearing all this, what is the one thing, just one thing, that you can do starting right now, today, to help protect the truth?